So, good evening, everyone. Welcome back for another webinar. Great to have you returning coaches. Great to have all the new ones that are jumping on as well. Slightly different topic for us this evening. So I think this will be something that will be very interesting for a number of coaches. I did one of these not too long ago, actually, and there was a few things that surprised me around the rules of the game that I had sort of assumed that I had known and had them the wrong way around or something like that. So it is an interesting one, slightly different topic, this one. So as normal, keep your microphones muted, but then I've got the chat open right in front of me. So if you've got any questions, shoot them through as we go. If we're going too fast, if we're going too slow, let us know and we'll speed up or slow down or what have you as we go along. And session, as you're aware, is being recorded and we'll upload it to YouTube onto the Heels Football channel either this evening or tomorrow morning. And you can share it with people within your club if you find that it's useful for yourselves. So for those of you that don't know me, which we're getting fewer and fewer each week, my name's Dan Shepherd. I'm the head of football / technical director for Heels Football Association. Been in the role for 2 years now. Looking forward to not having a COVID-related season because both my years have been hit by COVID. So interested to see what a real year looks like. A licensed coach, C licensed instructor, assessor, community presenter, deliver pretty much all of the courses, coaching courses across the association. And yeah, had some impact in or experience in coaching football in pretty much every level, every sort of age group, and always looking to find somewhere else to experience. Introduce my guest this evening, Mr. Chris Codlin, Referee Administration Officer for Heels Football. Chris, how long have you been with Heels Football now? It's obviously a season, but it's not quite a year, is it?
6 months tomorrow. But who's counting?
So we're very fortunate to have Chris, obviously well accredited, very experienced as a referee. Those of you that do some refereeing within our association as well, we'll deal with Chris on a regular occurrence, experiencing not only the 11-a-side format as well, but also futsal and a bit of a playing history as well up in Queensland, but I guess we won't hold that against him too much. So agenda for this evening, we're going to go through handball, sort of explain that one a little bit and what is a handball, what isn't a handball, and trying to take away some of the grey that happens, because there's definitely scenarios where you go, that was a handball in this scenario, but not in that scenario. A TD or a temporary dismissal and what that means and how that plays out. Advantage, drop ball. And then the last one will be the differences between miniroo football or mini tildes football and the 11-11 format of the game, because there's obviously some differences there due to age and stage of the players. So, Chris, handball.
Oh, I'm actually meant to know this stuff, am I?
Yeah, hopefully you are. You are the subject expert.
Oh, well, depends. There's normally thousands of experts on any given Saturday. Look, IFAB, which are the International Football Association Board, they are the ones that propose changes and write the laws of the game. This one has been changed twice in a couple of years. So if we can see the little diagram on the right-hand side, they've included this now in the laws of the game to basically say, generally anything below that armpit is going to be a handball. Above the armpit, it's not. But as we go through, sorry, I'm just getting some feedback there, Dan.
Yep.
I think someone's not muted. There we go. As we go through, you'll see the terminology. Generally, this is an offence, and generally this is not. As you said, you know, it would be nice if we could get rid of some of that grey area, but unfortunately, I think that these changes in the most recent edition of the IFAB laws of the game hasn't necessarily achieved that. But this is what we have to work with, so we will work with it. So we've just got some text here, and this is taken straight from the IFAB laws of the game, as I said. So it is an offence if a player deliberately touches the ball with their hand or arm, including moving the hand or arm towards the ball. That's simple. Everyone knows that. Dating back as long as I've been involved in football.
Might be having some internet issues over at Chris's place.
And what has changed between the arm and the shoulder? Oh, are you? You can't
Yeah,
hear
no,
me?
that had a. Oh no, sorry, that's my internet says it's unstable, a bit slow on my end, right?
Oh, I was going to say, please let me know. Wearing long sleeve shirts, yep, very good point. Makes it harder for the referees to judge. Just like anything, it becomes a judgment call there, Paul. Thanks for your question. Have we got a video on this one, Dan? It looks like we have a video here. Bear with us if this is too laggy.
Can you hear sound at your end?
Nah, I can't hear anything.
Let me do that again. Stop the share. I don't think I clicked the right button.
We might need our guests to potentially turn their cameras off to save some bandwidth, Dan.
Yep.
That's something I've found with these videos. That's better.
First half display.
So as we can see there,
Opportunity.
the arms. There we go. So the arm's very clearly away from the body. He's moved it towards the ball, control the ball. It's below the boundary line there, which is the armpit. So everyone involved in football, this is very clearly handling the ball. So that one's a nice, simple one for us to show. It is an offence if a player gains possession or control. Oh, you got Dan?
There you go. Sorry, snuck ahead of you.
No, you need to go back a slide.
Nope.
Oh no, wait.
That's the one we're on.
Forward a slide there. There we go. It's an offence if a player gains possession or control of the ball after it has touched their hand and arm, and then immediately scores in the opponent. So this is one of the changes that IFAB brought in a couple of years ago, and then they tweaked the wording to include immediately, and immediately is generally 1 or 2 seconds maximum. That's what they mean. That's what the spirit of the law is in terms of immediately. So obviously, you know, this is to stop that situation. And they, you know, it drops to their feet and they smash it in the goal, or it creates a goal scoring opportunity. Generally, a goal scoring opportunity is going to be generally inside the penalty area. It could be outside the penalty area if potentially, you know, maybe the goal's unguarded. However, if it's a shot, if it falls to the feet and it's a shot on goal and it's on target, then generally that's going to be constituted a goal scoring opportunity. Denial of an obvious goal scoring opportunity. In this law where we're talking about handball, we don't consider obvious. So it's if it creates essentially a shot on goal, or it occurs generally within the penalty area, that's generally going to be considered a goal scoring opportunity. So let's see what we've got here.
Now it's Costa Rica.
Oh,
He's got big space
we
here.
skipped a slide again. There we go.
This is blocked. He gets the deflection equity into this one today, Kobe.
Yeah, as this ball comes out, it does touch the hand.
So as we can see there, the balls come from the white player's foot, and it's bounced up and hit the blue player's arm. Now, if that happens in the middle of the park, that may not be considered a handball. The fact of the matter is, here we're inside the penalty area, and once that ball strikes the arm, it drops to his feet and he has a shot on goal. It doesn't, as I said, it's an opportunity, a goal scoring opportunity. Doesn't have to result in a goal, but the shot was on target. So once it's apparent, I think the referee would have whistled this basically as it hit his arm. But the interpretation of the law is we would need to wait and see if he's going to have a shot on goal to create that goal scoring opportunity. As soon as that goal scoring opportunity is created, we need to call the handling offence there. All right, next one, please, Dan. It is an offence if a player scores in the opponent's goal directly from the hand or arm, even if accidental. So this is, I think this has got the accidental. This has got the accidental video, which is good. This obviously, you know, it's always been the case. Like we all know about the hand of God with Maradona. That never should have been a goal. Thierry Henry, you know, all these famous ones that have gone by, they never should have been awarded as goals. They always should have been handballs because they were deliberate action. But what they've included now, because it's a general expectation of people involved in football, that even if it's accidental, a goal should never be scored from the arm or hand. It should never be allowed. So this video is going to show us an incident where it's an accidental handball and the goal still scored. Terrible defending by Juve there. But as we can see there, Neymar's got a clear header. And unfortunately for him, this has then bounced off his hand and gone into the goal. So now with the current laws, this would be disallowed and a free kick awarded to Juventus because it's a fair expectation that a goal should never be awarded if it struck someone's hand, because you just can't score goals with your hand.
Bad header by Neymar that far out from goal that it hits his hand anyway.
That's right, poor technique in my view. It is an offence if a player touches the ball with his hand or arm when the arm has made their body unnaturally bigger. The hand or arm is above or beyond their shoulder, unless the player deliberately plays the ball, then touches their hand or arm. So we've got 4 clips on this. So what this law is saying, clip we watched, he shouldn't be trying to play the ball with his hands. So for that scenario, he's made himself unnaturally bigger as well. So it depends. It depends. Like sometimes you see players when they're jockeying a player out wide to try and stop a cross from coming in, and sometimes they're for whatever reason they're jockeying with their arms away from their body out. This is making themselves unnaturally bigger because it's taking additional space that, you know, otherwise they really shouldn't be doing something on later. Very much with the second point, as I said, unnecessary risk. It is an unnecessary risk for a player to be playing with their arm above their shoulder height. There's not really any need to have their arm above their shoulder if they're challenging for a ball. And as the law says, unless the player deliberately plays the ball, which I think we'll see a clip on in a minute. So we'll go to the first video here. So as we can see there, the player's arm was away from his body. Well, let's just play 2 in rapid fire. That's all right.
Someone's got 2 videos as one.
Oh, maybe. So in the very first, in this first part, you can see the player raise his arm and out away from his body as the ball's trying to be played around him. This is what the law determines to be making himself unnatural. If we can again, the law here dictates that this is making himself unnaturally bigger. He's thrown himself to the ball. He doesn't really have much control. All he's trying to do is get himself in the way, but that hand is clearly out and away from his body. So that's what the law is referring to when we say the hand or arm their body unnatural. So here we go. Like I said, PK's jumped to head the ball. It's gone over his head, and the arm's above his head, and it's been struck into him by an opponent. The law says that the player's taken unnecessary above his shoulder handball. So the initial jump's fine, but it looks like his arm's raised in a subtle secondary movement. So this is deemed an unnecessary risk.
Oh,
Go back. Yeah. So in this video, this is the secondary clause to the arm above the shoulder height, where it says except when the ball has been played by themselves and into their arm. So here the player has miskicked the ball. She's off balance because she's falling, and the arm has then consequently been raised above their head, and the ball struck them. In the spirit of the law, there, this is not going to be deemed to be a handling offence.
and probably don't have your striker defend inside the penalty box as well.
Well, that's probably a good suggestion, Dan. I mean, I'm not much of a tactician, but So that one's hit him straight under the armpit. Yep. They've said the determination here is this is not handball as well. For that secondary cause, they've and they're saying that the arm was above the shoulder. So
that one's probably a hard one when you're on the sideline on the weekend. It is fairly obvious that it's touched him and wasn't a ricochet or whatever. But obviously from the rules, we understand now that you go, well, they've said it's played off themselves, arm high, so that's where it doesn't come in. But I can imagine on the sideline, we would definitely be appealing for that one. Yeah,
absolutely. You'll continue to see these ones appealed for by coaches and players alike, because no, Bill, the determination for that is no handball, so no penalty kick for that secondary cause there. The hand or arm is above his shoulder and it's been deliberately played. So yeah, we're not giving handball there.
Didn't it hit above the shirt sleeve as well?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's hit him right on the kind of the armpit. I felt watching the video, but they've determined that that armpit is the cutoff. So I suppose much like the ball's on the line ref, they're saying that this is they're saying that this is
right on the shirt sleeve.
Yeah, so they're saying this is right on the line. So they're saying that his arm, and I suppose his hand is, even though it hasn't struck his hand is above his shoulder technically by his fingertips, but that's what the determination was on this one. So yeah, because he's deliberately played that ball, and although he's not under any pressure, because he deliberately played the ball, this is not going to be determined to be handball now.
Maybe we need the rule that the whole of the ball has to be across the armpit or across the sleeve, because part of the ball is touching the arm there.
Yeah, look, and that's right, Paul. Unfortunately, there isn't that determination. Personally, if I'm officiating this match, I'm not going to mention anything about the armpit. There's no disputing that it's touched part of his arm, right? So I'm just saying his arm's above his shoulder height, and he's deliberately played the ball. So we're not giving a pen there, based on that cause, and we'll just totally negate the discussion about whether it hit him on the armpit or above or beneath. It is an offensive. No, we already went through that one. So the above offences that we just went through apply even if the ball touches a player's arm or hand directly from the head or body. That should read, sorry, including the foot of another player who is close. Except for the above offences, it is not usually an offence if the ball touches a player's hand or arm directly from the player's own head or body, including the foot, or directly from the head or body, including the foot of another player who is close. So this is where the interpretation of the law gets a bit convoluted, but we'll go ahead and watch these videos and I'll talk us through why we're not having an offence here. I believe these two are no offence. So we're saying this is not, we've seen them given. I'm sure everyone here has seen them given. They're saying that is close enough to not be handling the ball. So the player's in close enough proximity that struck the ball, and consequently it bounces off the white player's light thigh and then bounces up into the arm. His arm movement is natural for the challenge that he's making. and he's pulling it away, so he's trying to tuck it into his body there. So we're saying that this comes under that clause that it's being played, and it's been played by the player, the white player, bounced off his leg and then up into his arm. He hasn't made himself unnaturally bigger. The arm's not above the shoulder height. So that's why we're determining that this is not a handling offence. But as I said, we've seen them given. Doesn't make our job easy. So that one there, it doesn't even look like the green players had a time to react yet. The red player's got decent contact with the header. He's in close proximity to him. The arm's by his side, and the only movement that I've seen is away from the ball. Strikes, he slightly tries to move it right as the ball strikes him. So we're still determining that as not handling the ball. And I mean that one there is what we use to determine to be ball to hand, because of the close proximity of the players together.
Next slide.
Yeah, please. Okay. Except for the above offences, it is not usually an offence if the ball touches a player's arm, if the hand or arm is close to the body and does not make the body unnaturally bigger. So that's like what we just discussed. Not making themselves unnaturally bigger is good. When a player falls to the ground and the hand or arm is between the body and the ground to support the body, but not expended laterally or vertically away from the body. What we're saying here is if the player is falling to the ground and he places his arm on the ground to support his weight, essentially, we use the term supporting arm, and then the ball struck into him, then this is not going to be determined handball. Before we go on to the video, Dan, we've got a question from Paul. So Paul says, I can see a lot of disputed decisions from players or coaches arising from this. Most of them will be from referee, coach, players not fully understanding the complexities of the rule. Is there something that could be sent out to clubs explaining them in simple terms? Absolutely, Paul. I think what we'll find next year within Hills Football is there's going to be more law changes coming from IFAB. So I think you'll find that there'll be a presentation to club, either distributed or presented online also. And obviously handball is always a contentious one, as is offside. So I would expect that this would be addressed once again for the new season in 2022.
Plus, as well, you've obviously got this this webinar as well that will be on YouTube for as long as our YouTube channel is there for. So you could send this round to your players at the start of every season and say, hey, watch this and be aware of what is handball and what isn't handball, and even your parents. And they'll be able to catch up on this one as well as hopefully some content from us as well to help support that.
Thanks for your question, Paul. Oh.
Clearly hits him.
So, yeah, so that's okay. So the ball hasn't quite struck his arm there yet, but the determination here is that the arm was pinned to the chest when the ball struck the hand. It wasn't the other way around, so the arm was going away from the ball. not towards the ball. So he hasn't made himself unnaturally bigger. So again, the determination for this one was no handball for those reasons. So if we can, I don't think it's going to. Oh, it's going to show us. Yeah. So the ball struck. Oh, that was a good free. Yeah. So the ball struck the hand a millisecond after this freeze frame here. So the hand is on the ground supporting some of his body weight, and the ball's then rolled into his hand. Again, we're going to see appeals for this.
Fallen on top of the ball, hasn't it?
Yeah, he has. But likewise, if he's already fallen to the ground and the arm's supporting the body, as long as that arm's not being extended, then I was saying that this is going to be fine, and these things will happen. So it's not going to be handling the ball anymore. Yeah, I don't think we'll get a good freeze frame. We've got image. Here it is. So this is the image, isn't it, Dan? This isn't the photo.
Yep.
This isn't the video. Yeah. So in summary, based on those presentations we've got here, in this picture here, if that black player strikes the ball into that arm where the arrow's pointing, that's going to be determined to be handball. Okay. Because the hand or arm is above the shoulder and it's making his body bigger. Okay, so because he's trying to cross in to the penalty area, that ball strikes the arm, it's going to stop that cross from coming in. So then he's done his job as a defender, but he's done that illegally in the eyes of the law of the game. However,
and if the cross hits, say, the white player's thigh and bounce up to his arm,
then it's not going to be.
So if it goes directly from an orange boot to the arm above the head, penalty. If it goes from an orange boot onto a white short and arm, then you can't get out of the way of that in enough time.
Correct. That's correct. That's what we were talking about earlier, where it doesn't matter if the arm's above the shoulder, and it's played off his body first. Now the next part to this is with that left arm, we can see that his palm is going straight to the ground. So he's going to try and break his fall with his arm and support his body weight. So then if the ball was to roll into that left arm, then that's going to be no handball, no offence, because the hand or arm is supporting the body.
So that brings us to the last part on handball. So we'll move on to temporary dismissal next, but I just wanted to ask the group, handball is the biggest part of our discussion this evening because there's so many complexities to it. If there's any questions about handball before we move on, feel free to jump off mute or throw them in the chat room. We'll give you a couple of seconds to ask any questions. Hopefully everyone's now an expert.
What I will say is I do feel the greater football community's frustrations, with the amount of changes that these laws are made, like the amount of changes that are made and the frequency over the last few years that have been made, because it's just as hard for us to stay across the changes. We have to present them and then we have to impact them, and then when they're changing the next year, it's it is hard. And obviously, not every referee is as good a communicator as the next. And, a lot of this is being able to actually quickly but clearly across the board, the more people we can educate, the better chance we have of getting to a stage where everyone has an understanding about essentially the complexities that is the laws of the game we love.
All right, TD.
All right, well, that's you, isn't it?
Yeah.
No. So you might have all heard of temporary dismissal or sin bin, as is commonly referred to. This was introduced. IFAB first introduced this in the laws of the game as an option 5 years ago, I think. It's still there's a couple of different methods that are the laws of the game, and it is up to the individual FA, in which in our case is Hills Football, of what they want to adopt. So we have adopted it for grade 16 and above, okay, and it's only for dissent. So again, that's another one of the options. There is a provision in the laws of the game where temporary dismissal could be used for other offences. To my knowledge, across the world, it's not being used for anything other than dissent at this stage, which personally I think is a good thing. I don't necessarily think we need a temporary dismissal for anything else. As I said, dissent or word by action, and that should read is dealt with by a TD and not a yellow card. Sorry, Dan, I missed the typo. And what dissent is, essentially, it's back chat to the referee, right? It's players showing their displeasure or disgust with the decision that they've made. Likewise, if a player is saying something, fairly negative about the referee, and it's within the earshot of the referee, it doesn't matter if it's directed to him or not. If it's about him and he hears it, this is also determined to be dissent. So we don't show the yellow card anymore for dissent. We just use the two-hand signal, point to the technical area to indicate that the players have been temporarily dismissed. So for under 16s and 17s, rather, temporary dismissal was a 5-minute period, and for under 18s and up, we apply a 10-minute temporary dismissal. Much like a yellow card, like it was before, if the player receives 2 TDs in the same match, they can't continue. And we'll go on to what happens with other sanctions mixed into that in a later slide. The big thing for coaches to be aware of is the referee is the timekeeper for the duration of the TD. You often see coaches with stopwatches going ref, time's up, but there are certain stipulations and requirements that we need to follow in terms of the timing of the temporary dismissal and how the player returns to the match. We'll go to the next one, Dan. So when the temporary dismissal occurs, the player must leave the field of play and stay seated within the technical area. So that's where they go to. They just go sit on the bench. But the temporary dismissal starts when play is restarted, okay? It's not when the player leaves the field. It's not from the moment that the temporary dismissal is issued. It's from when they leave the field. And why this happens is sometimes you see players carrying on like turkeys and they want to stay on the field and argue. Generally a good referee will manage that without a further sanction. So that way, at least the other team who's now got the numerical advantage aren't being disadvantaged. That's the whole purpose of the temporary dismissal. That player cannot be interchanged, and the player must play one less player, so they play short for the TD duration. The referee will allow the TD player to return after the period is complete at an appropriate time during the match. Generally speaking, the appropriate time will be at the next stoppage in play. That's generally when it's going to happen. Mainly because the referee is focusing on the game, and can't just get the player back on.
It's treated a little bit like when an injured player is returned to the field, right?
It is, but the injured player can be returned while the ball's in play. But the instruction from Football New South Wales is that we return the TD player when the ball is next out of play. So that's just, again, that's up to the member fed, well, it's up to Football Australia really, but they obviously pass the buck to Football New South Wales, and then Football New South Wales say if you're going to apply for temporary dismissal, you can apply this way or this way, and these are the guidelines around it. So the appropriate time is when the ball's next out of play, following the end of the temporary dismissal period. So this is just a little bit of a diagram that just says what happens in certain situations. So if the first offence is temporary dismissal, he obviously has his 10 minutes. He has his 10 minutes and then comes back, and then he gets booked during the game. He continues to play. Okay, he doesn't have to leave the match, and he's still eligible to be substituted. Likewise, if it happens in reverse, the first offence is a yellow card and the second one's a temporary dismissal. Again, after the temporary dismissal period, he just returns, and that's fine.
Chris,
Yes.
could you receive a yellow card for a tackle and then
Yes.
a TD for dissent immediately basically within the same event?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can. The laws do indicate that, and I mean that's more referring to advantage. But absolutely, if a player gets booked for a reckless tackle and then he wants to get up and give him the referee a gobful, well, guess what? You've now been booked and you're going to go sit down for 10 minutes as well for a temporary dismissal. So yes, absolutely, you can. And unfortunately, it does happen sometimes. Will be able to determine what is dissent and what is frustrated. But yes, the answer is yes, and it does happen. If we have two temporary dismissals, as we said, receiving two TDs in the same match, the player can no longer continue. Okay, so once he gets that second temporary dismissal, he's now not able to participate in the rest of the match, same as if he got a red card. However, the difference between the red card and just receiving two TDs is that after the second temporary dismissal period, a substitute is then able to be returned to the match. So after that second temporary dismissal period, the player who got his second temporary dismissal, he's gone. He can't play anymore. But after that period's up, the team can go back to full complement of players. It's actually three offences. So if the first one's a yellow card, or the second one, it doesn't matter. If we've got a yellow card and then a temporary dismissal and then another temporary dismissal, this is where it gets a bit more serious now. So the player can't keep playing, as we already know, because he's received two TDs. But the difference here is because there's a third offence involved, which was the yellow card, which could be for anything. The team will now play short for the rest of the match, the same as the red card. Okay, so that's something that people, aren't necessarily too familiar with. It doesn't happen very often, I must admit, but the provision is there. Two yellows equal red, that hasn't changed, and a straight red card, that hasn't changed. Okay, what has changed, as I said, is the sim-in period. And how we deliver it. We used to show yellow cards for dissent. We don't. We just make the temporary dismissal signal. Paul asks if a player gets two TDs, will they get punished afterwards in the form of advantage as you would with a red card? My understanding is yes, Paul. I'm not sure if Dan, if you have any insight on that. I'm not 100% confident.
I believe that then gets recorded on the team sheet as a red card, and it's up to the referee's report to then explain what happened, and it is then treated as a double yellow card, I believe. But
that's my understanding. Unfortunately, we don't have our competitions manager here to double check that with her. But yeah, that's my understanding, Paul. My understanding is that it's still the same as what it was prior to temporary dismissals being introduced. So that was, two dissent offences would result in 2 yellow cards and consequently a red card. So yeah, my understanding is it does, and I believe there is also a punishment for accumulation of temporary dismissals, the same as there is in yellow cards. So yeah, that's right, Bill. Like you said, 2 yellows equals 1 week ban. My understanding is it's no different. 2 temporary dismissals in the same match, and you're going to be suspended for a week as well.
Where it then gets a bit confusing is in the first 2 rows when you got a yellow card and a TD. The TD then isn't recorded on the team sheet. Just the yellow card is, but then when you go to
that's not correct. Then
okay,
the temporary dismissal still gets recorded.
but you just don't have a punishment to have to deal with for the next week.
Yeah, correct. The next week. But my understanding is the reason it gets recorded is for those accumulation, because it's still essentially perceived as accumulation of yellow cards. We'll go to the next slide here. I think, is there anything else? No,
this is all advantage.
There's nothing else on the dismissal. Advantage. Well, advantage is a great part of the game because it contributes, if it's used effectively, it contributes to an entertaining match. That's why we're all involved in football. We like to be entertained. We like to enjoy it. And referees are no different. So the laws say that the referee may apply an advantage when an offence occurs, but they should consider the following. So these are some of the considerations that we need to look at when we're making that second decision, whether to play advantage or not. So the severity of defence is paramount. If the offence warrants a red card, the referee must stop play and send the player off unless there is a clear goal scoring opportunity. The instruction that goes to the referees under that secondary clause there, unless there's a clear goal scoring opportunity, unless the player is tapping the ball in the net, we're not applying advantage for a red card. We're just stopping the game and sending there is foul play as well, where we're not looking to apply advantage. If the chances of an immediate promising attack is another consideration, obviously they're the really good ones where we want to apply advantage. If it creates a promising attack, flying in, we've had half a dozen yellow cards. Some of the players, there might have been a bit of push and shove. Then we're probably not going to look to apply advantage. And the reason we're not going to look to apply advantage is because the chances of that escalating because we don't blow the whistle immediately is heightened. Particularly, if there's another rough tackle, there's every chance it could flare up into a melee. So the atmosphere of the match is definitely one that we consider as well. Let's look at the next slide there, Dan. So if advantage is played for an offence where a yellow or red card would have been issued, this yellow and red card must be issued when the ball's next out of play. So the referees have that at the next stop. This should we downgrade. So if we apply advantage for a red card offence, which was denial of an obvious goal scoring opportunity, by applying the advantage, where now there hasn't been a denial of an obvious goal scoring opportunity because the attack continued, the plays continued. Okay, And likewise, if the offence was interfering with or stopping a promising attack, it used to be that we could apply advantage and yellow card the player because it was interfering with applying advantage recognises there was a foul. But the interpretation changed with this. That if then applied for a promising attack situation, then it hasn't been interfered with, and obviously play continued, so it hasn't been stopped. So consequently, we don't caution anymore for that. Like we said, advantage should not be applied in situations of violent conduct through foul play. Spitting should definitely be there because that can obviously inflame the situation quite seriously very quickly. Or a second yellow card offence. The reason we don't apply an advantage for a second yellow card unless there's a clear opportunity to score a goal is it just looks messy. It looks very messy if we apply advantage, we come back and go, yep, that's a yellow card. Oh, sorry, that's your second. We're going to send you off now. So that's how we're instructed to administer second yellow cards. This varies from FA to FA in terms of, like, you see it in the English Premier League. The referees will double dip. They'll apply advantage. They'll realise it wasn't good, so they'll blow the whistle and come back. As per the laws of the game, though, once the advantage has been applied by the referee, and what it means by applied is making the signal or verbalising it, or both, then the referee does not have the power to actually come back and then blow the foul. So the referees are instructed to wait 3 seconds. It's called the wait and see technique, and they're instructed to wait that kind of period and until it's obvious whether there's going to be an attack, an opportunity to attack or not, before they make the signal. Because yes, once we make that signal, we can't come back. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter if we screwed it up or not. If we signal it, we can't come back, and we just need to put our hand up and go, yeah, hey mate, sorry, I got that wrong.
Which, from a coach's point of view, I've been on many matches when I've got annoyed at referees for either not playing advantage because something happened and they're too quick to blow the whistle, and obviously the game has then stopped. Or there was, I can clearly remember one this season where should have played an advantage. He did play an advantage, but he played and signalled it way too quick and was tackled within probably a second of the foul breaking down, and go, well, we would rather the foul because he was tackled way too quick, and it was a defender came from the blind side of the referee. So at the time, all right, fair enough, and tried to do the right thing. Didn't give the 3 seconds like you suggested there, Chris, to allow that, and that's where we can get a little bit heated at times on a sideline because you're screaming for a foul and it's not seemingly coming, because 3 seconds can seem like a long time at some stages, and then it comes and we say, why didn't the referee blow quicker? But now it kind of blew my mind a little bit when I realised that can't come back for the original foul. So we would probably all rather wait the 3 seconds and see if we can score a goal through an advantage or something, and then come back to it. The other element of advantage that typically happens, I feel, is once we've played advantage for so long and there hasn't necessarily been a natural stop, the player that makes the foul might escape getting their yellow card down the track. Yeah, which that's a human thing as well, right? We forget, and it can look messy if it's been 6 minutes before the ball's gone out of play or something like that. So there is just sometimes you have to take that as it comes, right?
Yeah, look, and I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. I've on a number of occasions I've just had a mental blank and lost the player's number. So it does happen. But yeah, no, the general direction is that wait those 3 seconds, get your head up, have a look at what is going on around. Are there passing options? Are they retaining possession of the ball? Are they creating a promising attack or a goal scoring opportunity? Or are they going to get shut down before we make that decision? We'll go to the next one. So drop ball. I think drop ball was changed 2 years ago, I think. So hopefully everyone's aware, drop balls are uncontested now. There's no more contested drop balls ever. So in the first instance, the ball is dropped for the goalkeeper in their penalty area if, when play was stopped, the ball was in the penalty area, or the last touch of the ball was in the penalty area. So any time that the ball plays stopped, you know, for something that's not a foul or whatever, we drop the ball to the goalkeeper regardless. However, in all other cases, the referee will drop the ball for a player of the team that last touched the ball when it was stopped. All other players at that point must remain at least 4 meters from the ball until it is in play, and the ball's in play when it touches the ground. If the ball enters the goal without touching at least 2 players, it is restarted with a goal kick if it enters the opponent's goal, or a corner kick if it enters the player's own goal. Okay, because particularly now that it's uncontested, this stops anyone from circumventing the spirit of the law and just slotting the ball into the net from a drop ball. Or sometimes it happens accidentally. You know, you see the player go to kick it back to the goalkeeper and then he miskicks it, or has an air swing. So, yeah, that's the thought process behind the change there.
Which makes a lot of sense, but I can imagine on a weekend if a drop ball happens and we've kicked it from halfway line back to the keeper and he stacks it and it's gone in, and we end up with a goal kick or something, there'll be a lot of confused faces on the sideline, not understanding they needed to touch a second player.
Yeah, that's right. And I've seen it particularly in the lower leagues, lower age division groups and divisions, where they've, you know, the coaches tried to do the right thing back when it was contested and say, no, move, you know, let him kick it back. And then he goes to kick it back and the goalkeeper goes to pick it up and it just rolls between his legs. I've seen it happen, you know, under 12 sixes or whatever. You know, it's great that the coaches are trying to teach them, you know, they're trying to teach them, you know, good sporting practices, good spirit of the laws, but, and spirit of the game rather. But, you know, these things happen, so having that provision there just safeguards the game there. The other thing is obviously the change is good. We just drop it to the team who were last in possession. That avoids having to, you know, kick the ball back, and we regain a bit of active game time as well. So I feel that's positive. We'll go for the next one, Dan.
Might just need to remind the referee sometimes who actually touched it last if there's been a long stoppage.
Yeah, we've had that discussion a few times this year in AYL, haven't we, Dan? Miniroos. Now, I was, I'm not sure, Dan, if I looked at the picture that you sent with the, you know, kind of breakdown or brief breakdown of each division, but I'm just concerned that one of these might be wrong, but we'll go through anyway. So there's, you know, there's some key differences, right? So slightly different rules or laws, as we refer to them in referee land, in order to facilitate the younger age groups of football. So the laws, IFAB give provisions to amend certain aspects of the laws of the game for, you know, essentially this small-sided age group football, you know, masters football, athletes with disabilities football, and women's football. So they play on a smaller field. They're younger. They play on a smaller field. We have a quarter line, okay, and we'll talk about that in a second. Qualifications of referees, they're actually game leaders or instructional referees. So the course is a lot shorter and a lot more basic because it's designed for younger children or even just general parents to have some education to referee their kids' game on a Saturday. Offside, we don't have offside in miniroos football.
We do in under 12s because we have ARs, but they're still classed as miniroos.
Sorry. I'm used to determining miniroos football being under 11s. That's my mistake. But yeah, under 11s and below, we don't have offside. With goal kicks, obviously, because of the shape and the size of the penalty area, they're taken from different points, and they're different distances as opposed to 11v11, where we've got a goal area, or the 6-yard box, as you guys might refer to it as, and then obviously the penalty area. Points table, my understanding is it's still non-competitive football for under 11s and below. I'm not sure about 12s, Dan.
Yeah, under 12 has the table, yeah.
Yeah, so under 11s and below is still non-competitive football, so they don't keep points tables. And throw-ins, some of the younger age groups, I believe, will play kick-ins. If I'm not mistaken, maybe 6s and 7s would play kick-ins because
and there's different requirements in terms of foul throws for some.
Yeah, that's also correct. Obviously, we want to at a young age to get there's a lot of moving parts to a throw-in. Feet on the ground, ball behind the head, facing the field when you throw the ball in. There's many moving parts, and getting an 8-year-old to get that right the first time is difficult. So, yeah, we got slides on each of these different ones, Dan?
No, this is it.
We
just
don't.
talking points.
All right. Okay. So with the smaller field is obviously, as I said, the players are younger, but we have less players on the field for the age group. So I believe it's like 9v9 for 10s and 11s, 7v7 for 8s and 9s,
yep, and
4v4 for 6s and 7s. Whereas then we go to under 12s and we play 11v11 or 10v10.
Under 12s is 9v9, and under 13 girls is 10v10 on a box to box, but under 13 boys is 11v11.
Yeah. So as we said, 13 girls, 12 girls, or whatever, they play box to box. And what we say box to box, we mean penalty area to penalty area on a full size field. But yeah, obviously, smaller number of players on the field means smaller field dimensions. Okay. The quarter line is an interesting rule. So it was introduced a few years ago by Football New South Wales, and then it's kind of been implemented across different football associations, and we still apply it here today. And at Football New South Wales level, it was applied for under 13s.
25-metre rule.
Yeah, and it was called the 25-metre rule. And the basis for that was to facilitate the, what's the word I'm looking for?
Playing out the back. They allow
So
the opposition from pressing.
The national curriculum. So the national curriculum dictates that, teams should play in a particular formation. Teams should be taught to play out from the back. So the 25-metre rule or the quarter line, same sort of premise, is to give the players ability to play that ball out from the back at a goal kick, to be able to develop that style of football. So in miniroos and minifielders football, the quarter line is that all the players need to retreat to that point until the ball has been played out by the goalkeeper, and that's essentially just to stop. It stops the promotion of essentially goal poaching, just sitting on top of the penalty area, and players just kicking the ball out, and or a goalkeeper not having a very good kick, and then just teams pummeling goal after goal. So at least it gives the teams a bit of an opportunity to try and get that ball upfield.
The important thing to note with that one is the defending team shouldn't encroach that zone until one of the defenders playing out of the back has had their first touch, which can be difficult for a referee to watch the ball and watch the oncoming charge at the same time, but probably very important for coaches just to remind their team, just to get them in the habit of holding off until they have had their first touch and before engaging the press.
Yeah, and we instruct our referees that with those matches that have a quarter line, when the goal kick's been taken, they should position themselves with the quarter line, and essentially, particularly in the miniroos and mini-tildes football, to instruct the players rather to hold their line, and then basically tell them when they can go. Like I alluded to before, qualification level of referees is only a game leader or instructional referee qualification. The course is only 3 or 4 hours long, and it covers basically the basic the basic rules in miniroos football, to get these people involved. And often these are siblings, older siblings of the players that are potentially playing in that game. The clubs in Hills football manage their own miniroos referees, and we just provide the coursework for them. So a lot of these referees, we don't see a lot of parents do the course. It's mainly just the younger kids. And when I'm saying young, 11 and 12 years old, to do the games before they can actually become a qualified level 4 referee and referee full-sided football. It's a really great way to start. I know Jim Moylan, who's on the call with us tonight, was a very big advocate and a massive supporter, and very influential in the setup of the miniroos referees program in Hills football. So thank you for that, Jim. Offside, as I said, we don't apply offside. However, there is an instruction to discourage players deliberately sitting in an offside position, particularly in that under 11 age group. But the referees essentially are powerless to award an infringement because there is no offence for committing offside.
Can you not apply unsporting conduct if it's too drastic? How far does that travel?
No, it wouldn't, because there's no sanctions, there's no red yellow cards in miniroos football. So the referees are expected to go and speak to the coach, and the coach is expected to oblige and just say, Johnny's deliberately sitting up front on top of the penalty area when the second last defender is 15 metres upfield. Can you encourage him to try and get back to do that? That's what the expectation of the miniroos rules is, and that's what we tell them to do. Terence has just said, although there is no offsides, we have found that some teams have a player constantly in an offside position, even when the coach or manager is spoken to. Yeah, look, absolutely, Terence. I understand that that is a problem. And ultimately, as I said, a lot of these kids are 11 and 12 years old that are refereeing these games. What they are encouraged to do, they are encouraged to talk to their referee coordinator afterwards, and put them in the picture. Generally, a word from the referee coordinator at any individual club to maybe the club coaching coordinator. They can do that. The referees are always told, or the referee coordinators, I should say, because I deal with them directly, are always told if there's anything they're not sure of to please reach out and speak to me. Because if I was to get a report that a particular side constantly doing that, and the referee did the right thing and spoke to the coach, and the player, there was no encouragement by the coach to get the player back on side or whatever, then that's not really in the player's best development interests. And then that's something that I'd certainly raise with Dan as the technical director, because it's just, it's not best coaching practice at all, in my view. But unfortunately, the referees are a little bit powerless with that. The goal kicks, as I said, the goal kicks are taken from different points because the penalty area is, in some cases, a different shape. It may just be an arc, so it may not be a box, and it may be a different distance from the goal line to the top of the penalty area. So, and obviously we don't generally have goal areas, which is the 6-yard box as well as the penalty area mark. So generally the goal kicks are just taken from the edge of the penalty area in miniroos football. And like we alluded to, the players of the opposition need to all retreat to the quarter line. Points table, we've already.
Hang on, before you go on to that one, Chris. Before you go on to points table, the other intricacy with goal kicks is in the younger miniroos grades, goalkeepers are not to drop kick the ball. Technically, they can't take a. So if they are to catch the ball in play.
Yeah, they need to put it on the ground or roll it out.
Yes, and they can. Their first year where they can actually do a complete drop kick is under 12s.
Yeah.
Which is a one that is often contested on a sideline. So the official is they can throw it, roll it, or put it on the ground and pass it. But they obviously need to be aware of if they've caught the ball in play, they then put it down to take it like a goal kick, the ball is in play and an opposing player could come and tackle them and place the ball in the net at that occasion. So from a coaching point of view, in probably 8s, 9s, 10s, I would probably suggest coaches allow the goalkeeper, the opposition's goalkeeper, to put the ball down from and play out the back in that scenario. In maybe an under 11 scenario, you might feel more equipped to want to go and press the goalkeeper and try and poke it in if you want to. However, just be aware of what you deliver could come back around you, and is it really the way that we would want to win or lose a game in those sorts of age groups? We were not probably going results based and trying to nick a goal in to win a game in that scenario. So there is some confusion that often happens in that scenario, but the normal way just to assume it is if it's a goal kick because the ball's gone out of play off the byline, yep, put on ground play. If it's been caught in hands, then it's just throw it or place it on the ground if they've got time and space to do so.
Yeah, no, good point, Dan. Absolutely. And yeah, just the final point is throw-in. So generally, particularly in the 8s and 9s, where we're definitely more accepting of foul throws, and the referees are there as instructional referees, so they're there to, further educate the players as well as the coaches, right? So generally, we're probably giving, I think we're generally giving three opportunities before we're turning it over. But in 10s and 11s, it's a bit more serious. Generally, they'll get one attempt, and then we're turning it over. And again, there has to be a balance between, contributing to, their game being fun, but also still educating them about the laws of football. Because once they obviously hit under 12s, they don't get a second chance with the throw-ins. Instructional referees are told to tell the players what they're doing wrong. Mate, you're not putting the ball all the way behind your head, or you're jumping when you throw it, so you've got to try and keep both feet on the ground. All these kind of stuff. As I said, they're there as an additional education tool about the laws of the game in addition to the coaches. So we need to be aware of that, and obviously encourage our players to take throw-ins correctly and be understanding if they get another chance also. I don't think there's any other rules or differences.
No, just moving on. So we've come through all our regular content that we spoke about. We've got our training essentials that we've come through. Every week we've sort of included this and the 4 components there that we want to include in all our training sessions. I guess the element now is we've got a little bit more knowledge around the rules of the game, the laws of the game. We might be able to include them in some of our practices a little bit more. If you're coaching in a miniroos or a mini tilde space, things like exclusion zones or quarter lines for goal kicks, throw-ins, and things like that, you might find that you can incorporate them into your last 20 minutes or so of training sessions and play them in a game and enforce them so players kind of understand that, whereas typically in training sessions we don't like to stop it for rules, for fouls, and it's kind of a play on scenario. But it definitely helps with the younger ones to reinforce that learning. And as we go into the older age groups now with things like handball, you might be able to officiate those things on the sideline as you need to, and bring them into the game as you see fit. And I definitely find a better level of uptake from the players when they are treated either equally at training as they would on the weekend, or potentially even harsher with penalties, with fouls and behaviour in training, and then comes to game day and it's not so difficult. So that's something to consider, and that obviously comes into So Change It, and comes into things like G here, game rules, how you can adapt them, not only typically from a coaching point of view of things like no tackling or minimum passes or got to get into this end zone before you can do things, but you can definitely incorporate laws of the game that reflect things like that as we go forward as well. And then our summary. So the ball, we've talked about handball. Striking the hand is not always a handball, but can be situational, depending on where it is, how it's traveled into to get to the arm, which we said can be a little bit confusing at times, and a little bit difficult for individuals on the sideline to potentially be able to notice. But yeah, there's lots of them there. Temporary dismissal replaces a yellow card for dissent for the older age groups, and what constitutes that, and how referees will be able to deliver that. And advantage, can we provide 2 to 3 seconds before things will go forwards or backwards, depending on what the referee decision is there. And drop balls are obviously now not contested, and there's a scenario where it's delivered to the goalkeeper, or a scenario where it's delivered to a player out in the field, which to be honest, I don't think the game stops too often in the penalty area that it wouldn't be for the goalkeeper anyway, right? And hopefully we've now come across a few scenarios where we've hopefully clarified for you and provide some good understanding around why a referee might have determined things or hasn't, or why was a handball not awarded, and things like that as we go forwards, without obviously you guys having to all be qualified referees. And extra resources, probably the one I've missed off here is actually the link to IFAB for you to check the laws of the game, but there is a link of that of our website, as well as on Football New South Wales and FA's website, and you can obviously easily Google that one. That brings the end of another brilliant webinar this evening. So what I'm going to do is stop the recording.